Hello all of you beautiful people, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, and even though the world outside might be literally melting down to the ground thanks to the heat wave that we're experiencing at the moment, over in the video game industry too, things were being set ablaze by new titles dropping with red hot spicy content over at E3 2021. But here's the problem, even though we got a lot to see, there were a fair few no-shows at E3 2021 that definitely were notable. So let's take a look at them today, or technically not, as these are indeed 10 video games that surprisingly no-showed E3 2021. Oh yeah, and by the way, I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com. Now let's get on with it. Number 10, Beyond Good and Evil 2. Now this one is a bit of a running joke when you think about it, because this game, Beyond Good and Evil 2, was announced back in 2007, and then we got our next sort of glimpse as to where the series was going in 2017. So is it really surprising that it no-showed yet another E3? Well yeah, kind of, because they promised that things would be a lot quicker this time around. The 2017 re-reveal was tremendously exciting, and a glossy presentation at E3 2018 further bolstered interest in what seemed to be a bold and spectacular follow-up to a beloved cult classic game. But since revealing some gameplay footage in December 2018, we've heard concerningly little in the way of concrete information, prompting rumours that development is indeed in trouble again and the game may be in danger of cancellation. And this was only further exacerbated by the fact that Michael Ansel stepped away from not only Ubisoft but the entire video game industry after reports that he was fostering a toxic work environment, which many believed led to the delay of this game for so many years. Though Ansel insists that Beyond Good and Evil 2 is in safe hands, the fact that it missed another Ubisoft E3 event is not very encouraging. For many, it is proof enough that the game may never see the light of day. Number 9, Senuas Saga Hellblade 2. So, Senuas Saga Hellblade 2 was revealed at the Game Awards in 2019 in a pretty unforgettable manner. That trailer stomps, mate. Since then, however, word's been pretty quiet on the much-hyped sequel, such that a more expansive gameplay reveal seemed like a sure thing for Microsoft and Bethesda's E3 showcase this year. The show might have been jam-packed with games, but Hellblade 2 sadly wasn't one of them, leaving fans readily speculating on the state of the sequel. Now, if you're to believe insider rumours, the reason why it no-showed the event is simply because, well, there wasn't that much to show. The game is very early on in its development, and thanks to the world pandemic that's going on, it meant that the game was completely fractured and has not been worked on very much at all. In which case, there's probably a fair argument to be made that Hellblade 2 was announced maybe a little bit too early. It may have made more sense to reveal it at this year's E3 so that fans weren't waiting a potential 4 years between the trailer and the game itself. Number 8, Final Fantasy XVI. Now, while it might be very wishful thinking to be hoping for a Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 to be announced at this year's E3, I feel like maybe we were shooting for the moon there. But I think it is definitely more than reasonable to get a little bit more concrete information on what the hell Final Fantasy XVI is all about, right? The RPG sequel was unexpectedly announced at Sony's livestream last September, and with reliable insider support suggesting the game is much further along than fans might reasonably think, but Square Enix's showcase came and went without even a passing mention of Final Fantasy XVI, much to fans' chagrin, opting instead to announce a new spin-off game from Team Ninja called Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. And it looked not like a Final Fantasy game, I'll tell you that much. While some are already speculating that this may mean it's going to be yet another Final Fantasy game that was revealed far too early and ends up taking years to come out, it's far more likely that Square Enix decided a holdback for Sony's own event that is going to be in a few weeks, given that the game is a timed PS5 exclusive. Therefore, this is a no-show that kind of makes sense if you consider all of the moving parts. Number 7, Hideo Kojima's new game. Now, this is the thing about Hideo Kojima. The guy absolutely loves to toot his own skin flute when it comes to pushing out stuff about his own games. And while, yes, we did see a director's cut of Death Stranding, which itself is completely laughable that there were ideas that he didn't use in a game that has literally every single idea ever being thrown at the wall, and then the wall being thrown at another wall, and it just kept on going ad infinitum. But you know what? Fine. He's a good guy. I like what he does. But we didn't hear anything about his new game, which is actually a bit surprising for him. Given that Death Stranding hit stores more than 18 months ago, and Kojima famously dropped the teaser for that game just 9 months after Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain was released, it was actually a reasonable expectation that he might have had something else to show. But alas, possibly due to the production constraints of the pandemic or Kojima's decision instead to focus on Death Stranding's director's cut, his new game, whether being Death Stranding 2 or an entirely new IP, was nowhere to be seen. Kojima confirmed last year that he was working with his regular artist collaborator Yoji Shinkawa on a new game, with persistent rumours even suggesting that it might be an Xbox exclusive title, but E3 gave us precious little concrete information. And what we do know about this game is surprisingly very little. The only thing that we've had is from Kojima himself stating that it's going to be a title that is going to focus on societal pressures. Brexit then, is it? Number 6, Fable. So in July of 2020, it was indeed a good time to be a Fable fan because Microsoft announced that the series was at last coming back. And there was actually rumours that began circulating that the developer Playground Games had been working on the title since 2018. So therefore, when 2021 came around and E3 came a knock-in, it was quite surprising that Fable didn't answer the door. Because the Microsoft Bethesda show came and went with Fable nowhere to be seen, arguably implying that the game is in a far more primordial state than expected, and perhaps further evidenced by last year's reveal being a mere CGI trailer. Insider chit-chat seems to suggest that Fable is going to be aiming for a 2023 drop, with Microsoft simply eager to get the word out there that Fable was actually in development rather than actually show people where it was in said development. And you got to remember as well that Playground Games just released that trailer for Forza 5, which does mean that they probably want to avoid having an oversaturation from one developer with 2 games coming out. They want to focus on one thing at a time and then move on to the next project afterwards. That kind of makes sense. But still, give me some of that Fable, man. Number 5, Skull and Bones. Oh my god, Ubisoft, are you actually going to ever release this game or not? It has been 4 years since you announced that Skull and Bones was coming out, and we have seen naught but a sausage! Development has indeed definitely been troubled for this title, with the game receiving numerous delays past its initial late 2018 due date. Last September, it was revealed that Skull and Bones' vision had received a significant overhaul, explaining the rather egregious delays. But even last month, Ubisoft announced that the game wasn't going to be coming out until late 2022 or early 2023, leaving us in a very bizarre situation where we have the name of the game and some gameplay footage, but then have been told specifically that that gameplay footage may be completely irrelevant in the fact that everything's been overhauled and that it's not coming out for another year and a bit. Cool? Number 4, Perfect Dark. So, last December at the Game Awards, Microsoft eagerly stepped up to the plate and knocked things out of the park with the reveal that Perfect Dark was coming back and that it was going to be headed up by a new studio called The Initiative. And with a name like that, you've got to trust him, right? Doesn't sound shady at all! The reveal trailer didn't actually give that much away, and many fans hoped that they'd learn to see a little bit more about the game at E3 this year, but alas, it was nowhere to be seen. This was perhaps a little less surprising than Hellblade 2 or Fable 3 being missing at E3, given that word on the streets has suggested that Perfect Dark is in a far more embryonic stage of development than either of the other 2 titles. Given that The Initiative was formed 3 years ago though, it's still surprising that they didn't have a mere snippet of gameplay to show, even accepting the obvious constraints the pandemic has placed on all development. And weirdly enough, the rumour is that this is yet another game that is going to be landing in the 2023 bracket, making this year a pretty substantial one for Microsoft. Number 3, Bioshock 4. So, while we know absolutely nothing about the new Bioshock game, we do know that it is indeed coming, because in December 2019, 2K announced that developers Cloud Chamber were taking up the mighty reins of this even mightier franchise. But apart from that, we know nothing. And then Kotaku pointed out that the game had actually been in development supposedly since 2015. So I've just got one question. Where's my Big Daddy? Where's my Big Daddy? Where the hell's my Big Daddy? Though, in fairness, 2K flat out said the game would be in development for the next several years, it wasn't out of the question for a slight reveal trailer to show up at this year's E3 event, right? After all, given that Bioshock Infinite came out all the way back in 2013, there's certainly value in building a lengthy hype campaign ahead of the new title's release. But ultimately, Bioshock was totally absent from E3, and fans can only hope that development is far enough along that it could be unveiled by year's end. Number 2, Splinter Cell. So I've got a question here. Does Ubisoft actually hate Splinter Cell? I don't understand it. It's been 8 years since the last one came out. Fans are still hot for the property. And every single time that they reference it in their games, Ubisoft is just like, oh, do you remember Splinter Cell? Do you remember Splinter Cell? Oh, we'll make a Netflix show of it. Oh, we'll put a little reference in it here. Oh, we'll do a DLC pack with Sam Fisher in. And every single person just goes, yes, we like Splinter Cell. Give us a new game, please. And they're just kind of like, la 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 la, Tom Clancy. Because yes, sadly, Ubisoft whiffed a prime opportunity to put fans out of their misery during the company's Ubisoft Forward event at this year's E3, as Sam Fisher was infuriatingly nowhere to be seen. Maybe due to Blacklist's underwhelming commercial performance, Ubisoft doesn't seem that much interested in resurrecting the series when they've got so many other really lucrative IPs, namely Rainbow Six, Ghost Recon, Assassin's Creed, and so on. But even so, it is a brand name, and you are making an animated Netflix series about it. Why not capitalize on one feeding the other, please? If nothing else, as well, Scott Tailford has been waiting for a new Splinter Cell game for so long that it looks like he cries every single time that you bring it up. And Scott's like a puppy, man. You don't kick him. And you're kicking him. Do not kick the WhatCulture puppy. And number 1, Avowed. So, during the Xbox Game Showcase in July of last year, Microsoft turned quite a few heads with Obsidian Entertainment's new video game title, which is called Avowed. And what was really interesting about this is that it was actually meant to be set in the same universe as Pillars of Eternity. Oh yes! The brief snippet of gameplay shown off in the reveal trailer looked gorgeously polished, enough so that many were hoping that they'd see a wider look at the game at this year's E3. Despite rumours suggesting a trailer drop may indeed have been on the cards, Microsoft offered nothing new on Avowed, perhaps even implying it's just another title which won't quite be ready for some time. Hey, who wants to place a bet on this being another 2023 title? The year of Microsoft 2023! Seriously, my wallet's going to take an absolute spanking if this is the case. Still, given Obsidian's RPG pedigree and the obvious comparisons to Skyrim, with some even overzealously dubbing it as a Skyrim killer already, Avowed is sure to be one of the most avidly anticipated video games of whatever year it eventually releases in. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 video games that surprisingly no-showed E3 2021. I hope that you enjoyed that, and let me know down below what you thought about these titles. Are you excited about them, or are you actually kind of glad that you didn't see them there because we got such a glut of good stuff as it was? Whatever the case, why don't come and chat with me over on Twitter at RetroJ with a 0, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice. It's on Twitch where I do all of my streaming, and it'd be great to see you over there. But before I go, my friend, I just want to say one thing. I hope that you're treating yourself well, both mentally and physically, because you deserve love, happiness, and success. I know I sound very aggressive when I'm pointing you right now, but I wish nothing but the best for you, my friend. I just want you to live a healthy and happy life, and treat yourself with all of the best things in life because you deserve them, and I don't want you to let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise, all right? You're a massive ledge. Now go out there and smash it. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Peace.